My dad, for Father's Day, wanted a video on UFOs and aliens, so I got him Crocs. um, no, I guess we could talk about aliens. It's not really what people like or think of. People want to hear about little green men, but mostly talks about aliens are if you're rational about it, it's more of a critique on what our perception of normal is and how our prior biases are inept at understanding what the external environment or the universe can do. This should be pretty fairly uncontestable point to bring up when contextualizing the idea of aliens, but nevertheless. So one approach to think about is like why haven't we seen aliens with the search for extraterrestrial life? There's a bunch of points to make about why we haven't seen aliens. One is that the universe is really vast, and our ability to sample and scan the night sky is quite limited compared to that vastness. So you hear this analogy that it's kind of like testing to see if the ocean has whales in it by going to the pond in your backyard and sampling like a shot glass and looking for whales in that. You're not going to find anything like that in the small amount of sample that you can make. The other thing is that again, like the strongest bias that we don't really know to check too much is that we're hierarchical social primates, and we have a really strong bias on thinking that like the only thing conscious out there is us, because that's how our brains are evolved to work. We're evolved to consider other members of our species. So the universe is generally pretty far departed from that very niche parameter. So it could be that the cosmos is actually alive and sophisticated in many ways that we just are not sensitive to. That's another one, is the failure of perspective. There's also another one, like the universe might not be old enough right now for us to actually make contact. So this one's a little bit unintuitive to grasp. We need to establish what the Pareto distribution is. Basically, the Pareto distribution is the 80-20 rule. 80% of your sales will come from 20% of your clients. 80% of the points in a baseball game are going to be scored by 20% of the players. And it's actually recursive within that. Within that 20%, 80% of that 20% comes from the 20% within the 20%. And so on and so forth. So this makes a curve that just, goes up. That's the Pareto distribution. It's why, the 1% own half of the wealth in the world. So growth is generally quite Pareto distributed, and probably contact with other intelligent species follows this law of growth and law of powers. So one way to think of this is if I take a petri dish and I seed it with a number of bacteria species, those bacteria species will grow generally exponentially. They will grow very slowly initially, and then towards the end they will rapidly take up all of the space that the petri dish has. So those multiple colonies are growing super slow for a long time, up until the point of criticality where y overcomes x and stuff explodes. So the universe is probably in that, like, if we're actually looking for like what we call it, anthropogenic, not anthropogenic, but something that humans would be sensitive to. If we're looking for life that we would recognize, it's probably true that the universe is just not mature enough or old enough for other civilizations to come in contact with each other yet. But there will come a time where they come in contact and compete with each other for chunks of the galaxy or chunks of the universe, really. So world not old enough because of the we're in the super like long tail that doesn't look like anything's happening before the J curve. That's one thing on why no aliens. The other thing is UFOs. Like UFOs, a lot of people have these phenomena of being contacted by truly alien, hard to recognize, like really weird stuff happening to them. A lot of people have those phenomena, and I actually believe that these people at least think they're telling the truth. Some of them do. And it's a real and documented phenomena. We haven't been able to reproduce it. Obviously, these would be black swan events and stuff that would have a lot of social impedance, right? Like if one guy has some really profound experience, it's really hard for the entire social sphere to take on what that guy has learned. So these types of events where someone like is abducted by aliens, maybe it happens. Who am I to say? It's way outside of anything that is normal to me. But given that there's a lot of historical, like ancient alien stuff, I hate to be the guy that goes behind History Channel, but given that there's a long account of similar phenomena, either it's something like deeply ingrained in human psychology, and we have these common hallucinations, which there are many common hallucinations that we can prove, little convergent quirks that our minds have, or they're real and persistent phenomena. Now, if they're real and persistent phenomena, the default hypothesis should not be that they're visitors from another world. That would kind of violate the thing we just talked about like the growth rate problem. So if they are, if these are really like intelligent beings coming down from extra dimensions or some other plane of existence to visit us, it's likely that they're actually not from other planets. They're likely from Earth, from previous cycles of civilization. So we do know that civilizations rise and fall and make, advances and collapses. We know in our own history of the Bronze Age collapse, when humanity and civilization came quite close to going extinct. So we're well aware of this particular tendency that civilizations have of growth and death, and we're also well aware that like that history has a horizon. We only remember so far back before stuff gets like really hazy. So it's not completely unreasonable to assume that the human species has been around. Anatomically modern human beings have been around for hundreds of thousands of years, and history has only reached back 10,000 or so years. So just from that sample, we only have 5% of the human species, or of the modern human species, and neofrontal cortex advanced humans and our ancestors reach back 2 million years. And we also know of convergent evolution. Like, nature has made crabs a gajillion times. Nature has made trees a gajillion times. Intelligent technological things that, like with opposable thumbs maybe, that can manipulate the environment to use tools and gain an edge. It's probably a niche that persists across time. There's probably nothing saying that strictly mammals have to do that, in fact. So it could be that humans have been civilized multiple times before in our past, and then the niche of technological civilization that has remained valid for multiple animal kingdoms on the scale of millions of years. So we're talking about tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of years for humans, and then millions of years for other things. So if you want to put on this is for you, Dad. That's the crazy conspiracy theory hat, and we want if we get like if we give carte blanche for just don't be rational, just go with the most interesting thing you can think of. All right, this is not what I believe, but it's an interesting idea. Civilization. Mostly what we see from the UFO phenomena is remnants of previously technologically advanced civilization, and largely what these crafts are doing is they are utilizing extreme forward time dilation. So if you take an object, and gravity wells do this, mass is energy, energy is mass, E equals mc squared. The closer you are to a gravity well, the slower time goes for you. Like if it's an intense gravity well and you're quite close to it, time slows down. Same thing for energy. If you have a whole crap ton of energy here, in some kind of energy potential, time will slow down around that if there's a energy potential gradient. It doesn't even need to be a gradient. It just needs to be like, there's the potential for energy there. Potential gradient, if you will. So if you have like a really strong energy potential gradient, time slows down, you can do extreme forward time dilation. So you would see like these peaks of civilization where they get these really strong, they're able to harness really steep energy gradients or energy potentials, and those guys, boop, they start making extreme forward time dilation. They phase into another like realm of existence or another dimension, if you will, and occasionally they drop octaves down to see what's going on the planet. Oh, maybe they do some genetic engineering. We got plenty of stories about that. And indeed, if you look back at this, like the kinds of things that people say, like they see tall gray aliens, they see Nordic-looking people. Some, I don't think I've heard many people saying Egyptians specifically, though you'd expect Egypt to do this kind of stuff. And people also say reptilians. So if the reptilians are like something, then that would seem to fit with the previous idea that, maybe in the age of the many hundreds of millions of years the dinosaurs reigned, that sometime some of those reptile-ish creatures, evolved some intelligence and did this extreme forward time dilation thing. So that might be an explanation for the reptilian aliens. I can hardly believe that I'm saying this, but essentially, like, there would be multiple octaves of which you, if you will, of how forward time dilated you are, and then you would drop down to interfere with humanity or reteach civilization, or I don't know, talk to the Clintons or whatever it is that people would suspect that previous civilizations would want to do if they had these like living time capsule forward time dilator craft. The physics of that is a little bit outside of my realm, and well, I say a little bit, but like I can understand it in like super broad strokes and make terrible blunders here and there. An actual like theoretical physicist would like dunk on me and be like, tell you exactly like at least a dozen ways how that's not accurate, or what I described as inaccurate, or it's just outright impossible. And then maybe a really crazy, like really good theoretical physicist would be like, no, actually, it's totally possible, man. And then he would go to Yellowstone and try to communicate with like, I don't know, Nazi aliens or something, and get sucked away like the 411 missing 411 conspiracy theory is that like in the national parks in America, a lot of really smart people go missing in mysterious circumstances, so they think it's like alien abductions or something like that. And some people also believe that the Nazis with the der Glocke, the bell, they were making ET craft with rotating mercury. So let's talk a little bit about the physics here. How would you be doing that? How would you get a crazy like strong energy gradient? Well, the whole energy, the whole just forward time dilation would follow a pretty simple area function. It's how steep your energy gradient is and how much of it you got. So it's like standard old volts versus amps thing. So if you're just like, if you have a small craft and a really steep energy gradient, then you can really accelerate that thing to extreme forward time dilation. But the larger the craft gets, the more of your high voltage, if you will, dilation you're going to need, and the more energy, like it by a factor of square, it's you're going to need more energy to do that. So one way that I don't know where I heard this or if I just intuited or whatever, I probably heard it somewhere, but the idea is that certain amalgams of mercury can reach a superfluidic state, and you can rotate them with standard old electromagnetic waves or electromagnetic fields, and you can rotate the supercritical or superfluidic mercury, and it'll reach like relativistic states, and that's sufficient to make one of these ET craft. And that's why they tend to be saucer shaped, because inside there's a torus of rotating, or some people say counter-rotating liquid mercury that just stores a mess ton of energy. Like, we're talking about like quite a bit of mass at relativistic speeds. But like, one, how are you going to contain that? You're not going to contain that with anything fermionic. The fermions are just straight up out. You're not going to have any elements or amalgams or alloys. Nothing's. Once you start getting up to fractions, significant fractions of the speed of light, fermions are just out. You're not interacting with that anymore. So you would need some kind of exotic matter to contain that, as far as we understand. And then on top of that, like, if the ET craft, like, let's just say it's storing like kilograms of matter at 99.999% the speed of light, like, kilograms at that level would just end the planet. just be gone if you had one failure of these things. So, from an engineering standpoint, I mean, it might be a cool, like, theoretical, you could dump energy into rotating mercury or relativistic rotating superfluids. It sounds kind of cool, but from an engineering standpoint, that's a great way to just make, you would never get there. Nothing would contain it. You'd never get there. So, no, I don't believe in any of this stuff. I mean, I think they're interesting ideas and they're interesting to think about. Don't get me wrong. They're cool exercises. I do believe that the phenomena reported are sometimes reported by, honest people, and that this is fringe science. There's some validity to go out and take tests and look at stuff and examine the phenomena, and instead of just writing it off as crazy people all the time, even though that's exactly what I just did. I think there's validity in pursuing what's going on there with some, seriousness. And I think the thought experiments at speculating at what lies beyond the fringes of our understanding is, in fact, kind of healthy. You should probably speculate and do that. But you should know that you're speculating, right? You should never speculate wildly and then be like, this is totally how it goes. Hazard, like, the propensity for error is great in general in life. But when you when you start speculating with incomplete information that you don't have access to, it's like almost assuredly a fool's errand. I mean, I guess some people can sort of kind of put pieces together like detectives and can use logic and deduction to deduce things that I guess you could call conspiracies or conspiracy theory, and theorize accurately. But I don't think like the UFO phenomena is one of these things. But what did we learn? We learned, or what did we discuss? We discussed. Oh wait, there's one extra. There's another explanation about aliens and why we don't see them. A cure to the Fermi paradox. So this, I do know where these laws came from, or the popularization of these ideas came from. There's a wonderful book called The Killing Star. And there's actually another rendition of this idea by a more modern book called book series called The Three Body Problem. But essentially, you only need three laws for this. One, wimps don't become top dogs, right? The people who are really passive, or the species who are really passive and not proactively aggressive, they don't become the dominant species. There's like tragedy of the commons problems and prisoner dilemmas and stuff like that you would have when you're trying to trust people and you're not trying to go ahead and proactively put down your competition. So assumption number one, wimps don't become top dogs. Assumption number two, any species is going to prefer its own species over some other species or group or whatever. Okay, easy given, right? Like, I mean, you'd prefer your family and stuff to strangers and whatnot. And then rule number three is that any such species is going to be aware that the other two laws apply to other people. So what this dynamic reveals is a phenomena or a hypothesis called the dark forest hypothesis. Basically, the model for cosmic sociology is that all of the intelligent species out there are very good at hiding, and they don't give away their position, and they're not loud. And if anything makes a noise and reveals itself in a cosmos that has multiple intelligent species, one of them is going to whack you. And when I mean whack you, I mean like remember how like a couple kilograms of like relativistic matter just obliterates your planet? Yeah, I mean like as technology increases, the asymmetry of attack versus defense way favors attack. So if you broadcast your location in the cosmos, it's like kind of trivially easy for some other species that you don't know about that listens to your location be like, okay, there's intelligent life out there that could potentially get us, or it could spread. So let's just take this asteroid, slingshot it around our star, and send it on a trajectory to just end that planet in like 10,000 years. So we don't have to worry about what that species can do in another million years, because we might have just heard about it like a couple thousand years late or whatever, however many light years it is from us. So you might think that's a tad extreme, but as like if you imagine like Earth as this little speck in the noise of in Killing Star, it was Michael Jackson's "We Are the World" that actually got us in trouble because that was a really loud radio broadcast. So other aliens found that broadcast, were like, ah yes, destroy all of humanity. So, like Michael Jackson got us all killed. So anyway, like you can imagine like this shell of radio energy kind of expanding out. And yeah, it might be very rare for one of these other civilizations to actually mobilize a silent death stroke attack on us. But by the time it expands out, there are all these other... There are millions, thousands, hundreds of millions of trials of other species that can hear our signals, and they can all make the call if they think it's a threat, or if like... Who knows what might actually be lurking in Three-Body Problem? There's like multiple aliens that figure out that Earth has life on it. One is the Trisolarans that have this problem in the Three-Body Problem. The Trisolarans find out that they have 3 stars, and it's called Three-Body Problem because the orbit of the stars is unpredictable. So this species, this intelligent race, has to like dehydrate themselves. They might freeze and they might burn. It's very difficult for them to figure out what their planet is going to do. So it's hard for them to adapt. They actually grow technologically at a much slower rate than humanity does, because they have to deal with random solar fluctuations and which sun's going to be closer and stuff. It sucks for them. And when they find out that Earth is like really good at supporting life, they want to come move to Earth away from their Tri-Solaris system. Well, the problem, and in the book Three-Body Problem, like the way humanity thwarts that is they basically say, I'm going to give away my position and your position to the rest of the cosmos, and someone's going to screw us up. And so the Tri-Solarans basically are like, all right, bet. And then that's what we do. And someone smacks a photoid, as they call it, through, we don't know who, but smacks a photoid through Tri-Solaris and ends them. So they're like destitute. They're like, okay, we don't have a home to go back to, and Earth's screwed, so we're screwed. They just abandon, like, Tri-Solarans get screwed over. And then Earth gets an even worse fate than having like a moon-sized like thing hurtled through the core of your planet. Some other like mind-bogglingly advanced civilization that existed in like 10 dimensions or something, like some dude at an office is like, it looks like these little guys, the star pluckers. I'm gonna call them the star pluckers, whatever. Like, it looks like they're alive. What should I do, boss? And the boss is like, screw you, Singer. Just do whatever you want. And Singer, the guy who hears it, is like, do I give him the photoid? That's kind of expensive for energy. I'll just give him this. And the this in the three body problem was that, like, the theory. I'm going off on a tirade, but this was so freaking interesting when I read about it. The theory was that nature had started out with many more dimensions than it has now, and like the peak top tier of like the worst attack you can do to another civilization that they cannot survive is you collapse dimensions. You collapse the dimensions that they have to where they're obliterated, man. You can't do anything, and that just like spreads out at, I think it's spread out at the speed of light, or maybe not. So what the Singer guy, like the random dude from some hyper advanced civilization thing, he just like flicked a piece of two-dimensional space at Earth, and when it collapsed, all of the space around it found a more stable vacuum state in 2 dimensions. So it just collapsed all of the space in our solar system to 2 dimensions. So yeah, it obliterated 3-dimensional life for sure. So yeah, 3-body problem was really cool. Really cool ideas of aliens. Some of these things might have some validity, but if the dark forest hypothesis of like of no one, it doesn't look like anybody's out there because everybody who survives is really good at staying quiet and being proactively violent. That could be a pretty valid explanation for the Fermi paradox, right? That could explain why we don't hear aliens, and that also fits in with we have microcosms of that dynamic playing out in Earth ecology. It's called dark forest for a reason, because if you're in the forest at night, stuff that makes noises gets ganked. So you want to. It's actually probably one of the reasons why humans evolved falling asleep, is to just be freaking still in the night, because the stuff that hunts at night is more perceptive and deadly than you. So just find a safe place and stay still. Like, that's probably why we sleep. And the same kinds of pressures should apply to cosmic sociology. So maybe one of the reasons why Earth civilizations go through these sudden spikes of population and technological advances and then collapses down to some super technological minimum for a very long time, and then it spikes back up, is that's the equivalent of technological sleep. Because if you broadcast techno signatures for a long time, you'll be detectable. But if it's for a short time, it's much less detectable. It could be that a lot of these ideas that we discussed today about UFOs and aliens and hypothetical cosmic sociology, it could be that a lot of these ideas kind of fit together. But it's just speculation, really just for fun, and really just for my dad. So if I don't have like fantastic editing, it's because that's what you get, Dad. Enjoy your Crocs. Bye.